Something remarkable is reshaping Europe's energy future, and almost no one has connected the dots yet. In December, a $53 billion mining consolidation quietly altered the balance of global copper supply, positioning Canada at the center of Europe's most urgent transformation, rebuilding an energy grid capable of surviving the next decade. Europe's transition demands more copper than it has ever consumed, and with old suppliers destabilized, one country now stands out as the only reliable source with long-term capacity. What began as a corporate merger is now turning into a geopolitical shift, and Europe is pivoting toward Canada faster than anyone expected. Welcome to Geocapitalist, where we break down the forces quietly reshaping global power. Today's story isn't just about minerals. It's about energy, influence, and a shift unfolding across Europe's strategic core. This is the story behind Canada and Europe's $53 billion copper shift that just changed the energy map. If you enjoy clear, data-driven geopolitical videos, consider subscribing. It helps us bring you more of the narratives shaping tomorrow's world. Europe's energy transformation has reached a critical tipping point. For the first time in its history, the continent's energy stability depends less on oil or gas and more on the metals required to rebuild an aging grid. Every wind turbine, every EV charging corridor, every heat pump conversion, and every new transmission line requires unprecedented volumes of copper. Volumes Europe cannot currently secure. Traditional suppliers like Peru and Chile face political instability, while Congo's output remains vulnerable to infrastructure and governance risks. Meanwhile, China controls nearly half of the world's refining capacity, creating a dependency Europe can no longer tolerate as geopolitical tensions increase. The European Commission has warned repeatedly that the continent is heading toward a structural copper deficit by 2030, precisely when its climate and industrial commitments peak. Behind closed doors, several EU member states now describe copper as the spine of European sovereignty. And as Europe scans the global landscape for stable, democratic, long-term partners, one country emerges as a uniquely reliable anchor: Canada. The turning point came with a corporate earthquake, the $53 billion Anglo Merger. What looked like a business transaction quickly became a geopolitical shockwave. Together, the merged entity forms one of the largest copper producers outside of China, with operations spanning British Columbia, Chile, and the United States. But the strategic heart of the merger lies in Canada, where vast reserves, strong regulatory frameworks, and political stability give European policymakers something rare: certainty. While Europe has struggled to secure dependable supplies from traditional partners, Canada's mining sector has quietly modernized, upgraded exploration capacity, and strengthened partnerships with democratic allies. The Anglo-Tech consolidation signals that Western supply chains are reorganizing themselves around secure jurisdictions, and European leaders understand the significance. For Germany, France, Sweden, and the Netherlands, this merger is interpreted as Canada stepping into a leadership role that other regions can no longer sustain. The $53 billion figure isn't just financial weight. It represents a realignment of where the copper that powers Europe will come from in the next decade. Europe's growing reliance on Canada becomes clearer when examining the continent's internal constraints. Decades of underinvestment have left transmission lines overloaded, grids fragmented, and renewable projects stalled. The EU's own analysis shows that copper demand for clean energy infrastructure will double by 2035, with some countries requiring growth rates even faster. Yet, European mining output remains limited by land constraints, environmental permitting, and local resistance. Domestic production simply cannot scale at the speed required. Europe needs external partners who can deliver not only ore, but long-term, predictable supply chains from mine to smelter. Canada offers precisely this. Its reserves are vast, but more importantly, They are developed under transparent regulations that Europe trusts. Canadian mines integrate with advanced environmental standards, reducing political friction for EU imports. With European industries, from EV manufacturers to grid operators, facing mounting pressure to decarbonize, securing copper from stable democracies is now a strategic imperative. As Europe pushes deeper into electrification, Canada transitions from a supplier to a structural pillar of European energy security. Germany's role in this shift is particularly significant. As Europe's industrial engine, Germany faces a dual challenge: maintaining manufacturing dominance while transitioning toward renewable power and electrified mobility. Berlin understands that copper shortages threaten both objectives. This is why German corporations, including Aurubis, the world's largest copper recycler, have been deepening ties with Canadian producers. Their agreements with companies operating in Quebec and British Columbia are not isolated transactions, but components of a broader realignment intended to diversify European supply away from volatile markets. Germany is also the architect behind several EU programs pushing for critical mineral security, and internal documents show a growing preference for Canadian-origin metals. The Anglo Merger amplifies this trajectory by creating a producer with the capacity to meet Europe's long-term requirements. German officials increasingly emphasize reliability over low prices, a shift accelerated by the lessons of overdependence on Russian gas. Now, energy security and mineral security are seen as the same issue, and Canada's role sits at the center of both debates. Beyond Germany, the wider European Union is undergoing a strategic rethink. Over the last 2 years, Brussels has mapped out vulnerabilities in its critical minerals pathways and found copper among the most exposed. European negotiators have since intensified diplomatic outreach to nations that align with democratic values and environmental standards. Canada repeatedly tops these assessments. One reason is the continent's need to reduce its reliance on Chinese refining, which currently dominates global copper processing. European manufacturers now seek transparent copper with traceable origins, a certification Canadian producers can meet. This shift dovetails with the EU's Net Zero Industry Act, which aims to localize clean tech manufacturing, but depends on secure, non-coercive suppliers. The Anglo Merger arrives at precisely the moment Europe is redesigning its procurement rules, pushing companies toward long-term contracts rather than spot market volatility. Canadian mines, with expanding capacity and renewed investment, fit this model. As Europe rewires its energy map, the continent's policymakers increasingly view Canada not as an optional partner, but as a foundational one. Canada's internal advantages make this transition possible. British Columbia, Yukon, and Quebec hold some of the world's most promising untapped copper resources. Supported by advanced geological surveying and new infrastructure investments. The merger consolidates decades of expertise, unlocking economies of scale that enable faster development and more predictable output, qualities Europe desperately needs. Canada's emphasis on environmental stewardship also aligns with European expectations. Mines now integrate advanced water usage systems, electrified fleets, and indigenous partnership frameworks that improve long-term project viability. These standards allow European governments to justify large-scale import commitments without domestic political backlash. Additionally, Canada's proximity to deep-water ports accelerates logistics, reducing shipping risk during global disruptions. Investors increasingly view Canada as the West's natural counterweight to resource volatility in developing regions. With the new combined copper giant headquartered in a stable, rule-of-law environment, Europe gains a supplier capable of supporting its electrification ambitions for decades. The merger effectively consolidates the backbone of Western copper security within a single, reliable Canadian-led system. As copper markets tighten, Europe is navigating a global competition for resources. Demand from AI-driven data centers, electric vehicles, and expanding grids has pushed copper into structural deficit territory. Analysts warn that by 2035, the world may supply only a fraction of the copper required to sustain economic growth. Against this backdrop, Europe's alignment with Canada becomes even more strategic. The Anglo-Tech entity can scale production faster than most rivals due to Canada's permitting clarity and technological integration. Competitors in South America face political shifts, while African producers grapple with rising operational risks. China, although dominant in refining, depends heavily on external concentrate and views Canada's growing market share with concern. Europe sees an opportunity. By securing ties with Canadian producers now, it avoids future bidding wars and geopolitical vulnerabilities. This shift is not simply economic, it is an attempt to anchor European energy transition within an alliance of predictable partners. Copper, once a commodity, is now a cornerstone of democratic energy strategy. When viewed together, Europe's pivot toward Canada becomes part of a broader geopolitical realignment. The $53 billion merger symbolizes the consolidation of Western mineral capacity at a moment when global markets are fragmenting. Europe is not turning to Canada by accident. It is responding to structural forces that demand stable, transparent, and politically aligned partners. Canadian mines offer scale, longevity, and regulatory clarity, attributes that Europe needs but cannot generate quickly within its own borders. This partnership strengthens both sides. Europe secures the copper necessary to rebuild its energy systems, and Canada expands its influence as a cornerstone of the democratic world's industrial future. For policymakers in Brussels, Berlin, and Paris, this is an investment not only in infrastructure, but in geopolitical resilience. And for Canada, it is a chance to shape the energy transition of an entire continent. The Anglo-Tech merger may have started in boardrooms, but its consequences now reach deep into Europe's energy map, setting the trajectory for the decade ahead. Europe's energy future is being rewritten in real time, and Canada now sits at the center of that transformation. As copper shortages deepen and global competition accelerates, the nations that secure stable partnerships today will define the energy landscape of tomorrow. The $53 billion consolidation that began as a corporate move has evolved into a strategic turning point, linking Canada and Europe in ways few anticipated. If you gained clarity today, I invite you to watch the next video, because the world is shifting fast and every alliance tells a story. Consider subscribing as we continue exploring the shifts shaping a more interconnected world. Thank you for being here, for your comments, and for your trust. See you in the next video.